Hello my bookish friends, welcome or welcome back. I am Elizabeth, this is Reading Wryly, and today we're going to be reading books that are associated or have been recommended as similar to Black Mirror. Are you a fan of Black Mirror? Because I am. If somebody says Black Mirror to me, I am immediately going to read this book. If they compare it to Black Mirror, it's an automatic yes. Yes, please, sign me up. Thank you very much. I thought I would explore that. I thought I would delve into that a little bit more. This is post-video Elizabeth right now, so I'm going to tell you right now I'm reading 4 books for this. I will mention several others. There are so many books that I have found on these lists, and I've gathered many of them. But I'm only going to be reading 4 of them this time around. Let me know if you're interested in some of the other ones that I mentioned along the way, and I can maybe do another video that includes them. This video also includes a lot of the footage from my recent trip to Seattle. So it's going to have some kind of travel themes in there as well. If you're not interested in that, I will separate it into the chapters down below so that you can kind of skip over that. But there is a little bit in there where I talk about the first book. So just keep your eyes open. I will tell you about some recommendations in Seattle if you're interested. Some places that we went. Oh my God, it was so amazing. I did get sick though. Y'all, we still need to wear our masks. Like, still be careful. Let's be conscientious, because I was not. I'm going to tell you about the first book that I will be reading, and it is Machines Like Me by Ian McEwan. This book is about this man. What is his name? Charlie. This is set in an alternative 1980s London. Oh my God, it's so shiny. These are library books. That's why they're so shiny. There's this guy, Charlie. He's in love with his upstairs neighbor, and he buys an AI. It's like this brand new product. He comes into some money and he buys this AI named Adam. This is the story of how he is trying to kind of win over his upstairs neighbor, Miranda, by using Adam, and the way that their lives change, I guess, based on Adam's arrival in it. And so this one I felt like definitely had the Black Mirror kind of vibe, because it has that, like, even though it's set in 1980s, it's that alternate history, and so it's very futuristic in which they have AI. I'm also going to be reading The Last One by Alexandra Olivia. This is kind of a post-apocalyptic, but it's also set on a reality TV show. It's a survivor type TV show, and we're following this main character, Zoo. It's supposed to say a lot about how TV and the media changes our perception of reality, and there is kind of this pandemic, this apocalypse that is occurring, and the contestants don't necessarily know what's real life and what's not. Next, I will read Dark Tales, which is an anthology by Shirley Jackson. This was also recommended. I'll kind of go through the recommendations as well on the lists that I found so that you can see more. And this is short stories. Some are a little bit speculative. Some of them are just dark. We'll get into that. And then lastly, I finished this vlog off with Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. And this one is a dystopian / Black Mirror-esque tale about these kids who grew up in this very special boarding school. That is it. These are the 4 books that I'm going to be reading for this vlog. Before we get into my Seattle trip and reading these books, I want to show you where I found these recommendations. And I'll show you the list that I found. Okay, this one was the first one, Penguin Random House. Books to read if you like Black Mirror. This I need to get. There's an actual book, but we need to get that. I should have gotten that. Machines Like Me, first of all, this is the first book we're going to be reading. This is where I got this recommendation. The Passengers, John Mars. I have read this, 100% recommend this one. This is like 5 minutes into the future. Everybody has self-driving cars. Somebody hacks them and puts 6 people on a collision course towards each other, and then they let the public decide who lives and who dies. Very good. This is an Amazon TV show adaptation, which I started watching and didn't love, so did not want to pick this one. After On, this is absolutely one of the choices here. Salvation, I did not like the synopsis of this, so I did not pick that. Stranger Things, obviously, but no. The Last One, this is another one that we're going to be reading. Alexandra Oliva. Dark Matter, Blake Crouch. I have read this one. Highly recommend this and all of Blake Crouch's books. If you like any kind of sci-fi, it does kind of hit that Black Mirror aspect. I would agree with that. Irresistible. This one I think was a nonfiction, which is why I chose not to pick this one. Dark Tales by Shirley Jackson. I will be reading. All I Rank Today is another option. And that's it for this list. Let's go find, there's another one. Another list. Here it is. 13 books like Black Mirror for fans who've already something or other. A reading list. The Circle. This one was an option, but I decided that the synopsis just didn't sound right for me. Margaret Atwood. These are so huge. Why are you so huge? Can I make you smaller? No. Oryx and Crake. I don't know. I read the synopsis. I love Margaret Atwood, but I read the synopsis to this and it just didn't hit me. This one, Need, sounded super YA. Version Control. I think I've read this. Have I read this? Maybe I haven't. Maybe I thought this was a Max Barry novel. I don't think I have read Version Control. Ready Player One. This might fit, actually, and I love Ready Player One. Honestly, one of the best audiobooks I've ever read, narrated by Will Wheaton. Fucking amazing. Number 2, you can skip, though. The Status of All Things. I don't remember looking this up. It must not have. Oh, it's a romance. Maybe that's why. Neuromancer. William Gibson. Another one I didn't fully consider. Oh, whoops. Data Thief in the Matrix, but he's about to quit the game. Cyberpunk. I didn't read this for this, but I maybe should. The Wild, actually bought this book. I will not read it for this, but let me know if you want me to read it in the future. Snow Crash, I didn't really look into this one. More Than This, Patrick Ness, very kind of YA, so I am not including it. Erasure. I don't remember looking this one up. Interesting. Never Let Me Go. I will be reading this one. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? A kind of pulp fiction Kafka. I mean, that sounds amazing, but I did not read this. Maybe I couldn't find it. Before Black Mirror. Oh, this is Blade Runner. This is the book that Blade Runner is based off of, which is why I did not read that. I have seen Blade Runner. I do like Blade Runner. And that was it. I guess let's get into it. It was a beautiful morning. So if you go to Seattle, take the train from the airport. It's $3 to get to downtown Seattle. It's about a 30-minute ride. So worth it. I started Plastic Monsters. Did not finish it yet. This is our hotel, which we 100% cannot afford, but we got a crazy deal and it was so amazing. Like, look at this place. Look at those ceilings. Oh my God, it was incredible. We started out the day by going to Pike Place, which is kind of this like open market down there, which is gorgeous. We stopped at Post Alley Espresso for some coffees.
I want a salty nut.
A what?
Salty nut.
Oh, there's the gum wall. And we found the gum wall. Wow. It's somehow disgusting and beautiful. Where are you gonna put yours? I feel like you should put yours up high since you're so tall. There's now a piece of us preserved forever on the streets of Seattle. It's amazing. I found a blank spot right there. That's mine. No, I already lost it. A lot of fish markets over there. The seafood, y'all. The seafood. This is kind of the downstairs part to Pike's Place and this really hilarious couple that were playing music. I found that people alternated in this spot and I wondered how they claimed that spot because that was the best spot. This is Pike's Place Chowda. They have won so many awards. You'll want to get there early before they open because the line goes around the block. It was absolutely fantastic. We got the seafood bisque, we got the classic clam chowda, and we got a Connecticut style lobster roll. So good.
Are you wanting to go in here?
Yes, I am. So many little hidden bookstores in Pike's Place too. Thanks to Gabby for recommending hunting for those because I 100% did. Please resist the impulse to type. It is an impulse. But now I want to do it more. I have never experienced this kind of outdoor market. It was so beautiful. And this is us just kind of exploring Pike Place. I don't know if it's Pike Place or Pike's Place. So much fruit and fresh flowers and art and everything your heart can imagine. It made me feel like I was in a Meg Ryan movie, 100%. So rich in culture. There were a lot of really steep hills too, like San Francisco, but it also has like a New York vibe, but not so pretentious. This is the Space Needle, which we went to the top of, and that was a lot of fun. Here's the view from up top. That is a pretty awesome view. Every day, it ended up being a perfect day. So gorgeous. This is again from the top of the Space Needle. Like, can you imagine living there? We went to Copperworks Distillery, and I tried some whiskey. Jordan tried some vodka and gin. Plum gin. What do you think? Yeah?
I think it's sweet, but you might like it.
Another bookstore. How freaking cute is it? I didn't actually buy any books though, because then I would have had to carry them around all day and I wasn't having that. But just the atmosphere was enough for me. Okay, thank you. And then we went to the Chihuly exhibit. Dale Chihuly, he is a very prolific glass artist. He is from Seattle, which I never knew, and some awesome, beautiful, gorgeous work. My husband and I, like, we saw so many Chihuly pieces around Seattle that we have an inside joke now where any piece of glass that we see, we wonder if it's a Chihuly. Definitely recommend this if you're into art. Okay, it's day 2 in Seattle. I fucking love it here. I want to live here. It's fucking amazing and beautiful, and it has so much culture. And it's so unpretentious. I love it. It feels like New York, but with really good seafood and just more chill, you know? Anyway, I am reading Machines Like Me, and I'm almost done with it, so I need to check it with you guys if I want this to be a vlog at all. So I figured now's the best time. We're about to go get breakfast. Jordan's in the shower. So what is this book about? So it's about this guy, Charlie, and he's in his 30s, and he's just kind of like not really done much with his life. Whenever he gets money, he just like spends it on some scheme and it never works out. And his mom died and left him like 90 grand. Oh, and this is in like a altered history London, which we'll get to. But anyway, he spends this 90 grand on this new robot, artificial intelligence named Adam. There's only like 13 or 14 of them, I think, that are released. And he's got this neighbor upstairs, Miranda. Is it Miranda or Meredith? Miranda, I think. He's got a huge crush on her. He's like obsessed with her. Not obsessed with her, but like he's definitely picturing a future with her and she's not, you know, but he wants to do whatever he can to make her more comfortable. Like, they're together all the time, they spend a lot of time together, but they're not intimate, and he's trying to move their relationship to the next level. He's friend-zoned, essentially. When they first set him up, they get to implement their personality, which is really cool because they talk about the big 5 and the different aspects of personality in general and stuff. But he wants to let Meredith, whatever her name is, pick out some of the characteristics so that it'll be like their child, and so it'll like bind them together. So she does, and they end up living with Adam, but Adam falls in love with Miranda. Miranda's also got some shit going on in her past that has to do with one of her best friends growing up. She's got like a revenge story happening. Charlie doesn't know about this. It took a long time for me to get into this, to get started, to get like sort of into it. I do think if you are from, you know, the UK, Britain generally, you will like this more than I do because there's a lot of politics. Because it is a altered history, I can't tell necessarily what's been altered and what's real because I don't know, like, what's a Tory? I don't know what a Tory is. There's a lot about politics in there. There is a lot about Alan Turing though, which I only know about because I watched a movie that I'll pop up here that I can't remember the name of that was really, really good. I do know that in real life, he took his own life when he was very young, like in his late 40s or something. And in this alternate history, he's like in his 70s and he plays a big role in these AI beings. I'm not really sure where I'm falling as far as like how much I'm enjoying this, how much I'm not enjoying it. Like, it's definitely not a 5-star at this point. It's maybe a 3 to 3.5 star range. So we'll see. It is like, I get the reference to Black Mirror though, because it's like this future that's just slightly different from ours, even though it's not like slightly, I think it's actually set in like 1980s, but it's like altered. So I don't know, I get the reference. It's fine so far. We are about to go get breakfast, so I will check in later. This is the George. This was attached to our hotel. See the map up there? Seattle loves their maps. Map stores everywhere. How do they stay in business? People love maps. We went here twice for breakfast and once for dinner. The food was incredible. This is the escalator leading down to the street from the lobby of our hotel. Hi! Then we went to the aquarium. I love otter. Why are they the cutest things ever? And can we just take a moment to look at these amazing jellyfish? This was set up in like this tunnel that you could walk underneath and just stand surrounded by it. And this was one of my favorite intersections because this building is like on an angle. It reminded me of Europe, even though I've never been there. Then we jumped on the city bus. We took that across town and we went to the zoo. I'm telling you, everything in Seattle, like the green is greener. There's moss on everything. It's freaking gorgeous. And because you have that kind of like overcast, it makes the green moss, like it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. Oh, there was also a street called Denny Way, which made me really sad and miss my boys. Yeah.
What a photo.
Huh?
I said, what a photo.
Then we went to Mopop.
Oh wow, that is so cool. Here we go.
The Museum of Pop Culture. There was a lot about music. There was an entire room devoted to Nirvana. As you might imagine, they're from Seattle, but I really enjoyed the horror section. There were a lot of props from horror movies that were pretty damn cool. This was dinner at the George, our seafood tower. Incredible. The next day, we ended up taking a ferry ride, boat ride, I don't know what you would call this, across the bay. And I'm telling you, the view of Seattle from the water is everything. It's, just look at this. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's everything. And we had an amazing tour guide. It's very like a touristy thing to do, but we did learn so much. And we did it on, I think, Sunday, so there weren't a whole lot of people. Again, oysters. This is at Elliott's right on the bay. 100% recommend. So good. We tried a whole bunch of different kinds and got to compare and taste test. Nothing better than a fresh oyster. And they're not like oysters in Texas. The ones in Texas suck. These were incredible. So a little horseradish, a little mignonette.
So it's gonna be funny.
Good? What was that one called?
Cushy.
Another spot you do not want to miss out on is Beecher's Cheese. This place is incredible. We 100% took some cheese home with us. This is their smoked salmon mac and cheese. It doesn't look as rich as it tastes, but it was so rich and so good. This is their flagship sandwich with tomato, cheddar cheese, and basil. Ugh, so good. And you're sitting there and you could watch them actually make the cheese as you sit there and eat it. And then we got a little snack before we got back on the plane to come home. Daily Dozen donuts, hot, fresh donuts with some coffee, crisp, cool air. Like, just the gorgeous, gorgeous finish to our trip here. I loved it so much. Back on the train, sadly, to go back to the airport, and we made our way home.
He spent years on his translation of Balzac's La Comédie Humaine, published in boxed sets.
We are back from Seattle, and I did not want to leave. I cannot believe how much we got in to that one weekend little jaunt, and it was fucking amazing. I will say there's a lot of people just openly doing drugs, doing hard drugs on the sidewalk, so that was intense, but the culture, the beauty, the fucking seafood, so good. Oh my god. I finished Machines Like Me on the airplane ride home, so let's talk about it. I hate this. I'm not one who gets joy out of dragging something through the mud. But if I were going to, I feel like it would be this book. I've never read by this author before, and supposedly he's like a really well-known author. But after reading this, I'm not intrigued to read his other books at all. This had no plot. Like, none. I don't understand. I think I know what he was trying to do, but if that's what he was trying to do, he did not accomplish it. I think what happened was this author got really excited about an alternate timeline and renaming Tolstoy books and commenting on Margaret Thatcher and being obsessed with Alan Turing, which I get it, he was a fantastic man, but give me a break. Like, you got a little sidetracked there and you forgot to write a plot. Nothing happens in this book, and the characters are boring as fuck. I was trying to give them a benefit of the doubt. I really was. I thought there was going to be a twist. There was an opportunity in here. There was an opportunity. I'm going to tell you what I thought was going to happen because it didn't happen, so it's not a spoiler. I thought our two main characters, Charlie and Miranda, they come together by caring for this robot and like making it their own like robot baby child thing. What I thought was going to happen was that we were going to find out that either Miranda or Charlie were actually a machine themselves. And it hinted at that. Like, it hinted like that was going to happen, and it just didn't. And at the end, it was just like, yes, and now I'm going to go back to my sad life. The end. What? Like, what the actual fuck? What were you thinking, Ian McEwan? Also, there's kind of a problematic handling of rape and sexual assault, which, like, I get why he did that for the sake of whatever plot there was, but, like, did you need to? I don't think so. You didn't need to do that. So why? Like, what was the point? You're not trying to say something with it, clearly. I don't get it. Yeah, missed the mark on this one for sure. The narrator, I will say, though, was fantastic. His name was Stephen Crossley, and I loved his voice. And he was a fantastic narrator. Other than that, this book sucks. I think I'm giving it 1 star. I rarely give out 1 stars, but I really don't recommend this. Like, there's no point to it. What he was trying to do, I think, was comment on what makes us human. What is that fine line between AI and humanity? There's this theme of like violence against these robots, which they enact on themselves because they can't deal with the trauma of living in humanity, living in a human world where all these terrible things are happening. If they seem that human, if they are sentient, if they have a soul, like, is that murder? The first step in abuse is dehumanization, and so it's easy, obviously, if you have a machine to dehumanize it, but that's a stretch to like say that this book says that. I think that's what he was trying to say, but it did not come across that way, and it really didn't say anything. Like, it was just terrible. So anyway, moving on. I just started the last one by Alexandra Oliva, not Olivia, Oliva. Speaking of London. Anyway, the last one. This one seems all right so far. I'm really hoping this is going to be good because I have not read that many books yet this month, and all of them have sucked so far. So I'm discouraged. But what is this one about? It says she wanted an adventure. She never imagined it would go this far. 12 contestants on a reality TV show are sent into the woods, and it's supposed to be about survival. But something goes very, very wrong. Is a novel that forces us to confront the role that media plays in our perception of what is real. How readily we cast our judgments and how easily we are manipulated. Interesting. So yeah, I think the main character, her name is Zoo. She's one of the contestants on this show. She knows that they're trying to like test her survival skills, but then some kind of virus breaks out, and the contestants aren't aware of it because they're kind of within their own little bubble, and they think it's part of the show. And so when they start seeing things, like in the first chapter, first of all, there's a chapter 0, which I thought was cool. I think it's like ground zero, like this is like the beginning of this pandemic thing. I am having a little bit of a hard time just from the first couple chapters seeing how this is connected to like the Black Mirror theme, but I think that whole perception of reality thing is going to kind of play into that. The first chapter 0, I say the first chapter, a lot of foreshadowing. Like the first line of this book is, the first one on the production team to die will be the editor. So it's giving me like Stephen King vibes because it's like, this person's going to die, this person's going to die, this is what happens, go. You kind of know these people are gonna die, the producer's gonna die, the editor is gonna die. But it's like, just know this because when you get into the destruction, it's gonna get fucked up. I'm like, okay, you know. And it's telling us like shots, like doing cuts of shots that they're taking. So it's told from the frame of the reality TV show. And from the setup, we know that the editor is editing these basically almost in live time because the show is premiering and he is editing like as he gets it the day before sending it out. So there's very little time in between for corrections. And it does say that by the time he dies, or maybe it's by the time the producer dies, it'll be like the third show will have aired. Okay, here, listen to this. The producer too will die 5 days from today. He will be alone in his 4,100 square foot home, weak and abandoned when it happens. In his final moments of life, he will unconsciously lap the blood leaking from his nose because his tongue will be just that dry. I like that line. And then chapter 1, we're following Zoo, and she stumbles across this stuff, which smells like bodies and looks like bodies, but she's like, no, I'm sure it's part of the show. So anyway, I'm obviously at the very beginning of this. I'm really crossing my fingers that this one's gonna be better than the last one. So we'll see how that goes. Also, I got my hoodie in, or not a hoodie, this is the crew neck. It's like really big and comfy and cozy. This is so soft on the inside. And I am just like loving this. So Midnight Society merch coming through clutch. I think that's it for now. I'm going to finish reading this and then I will check back in when I'm done reading this. Okay. Okay, it's the next day. I finished the last one. Let me just tell you more about it because I know I didn't give you much at the beginning. The main character that we're following, Zoo, they call her Zoo because she works either at the zoo or with animals. She does something with animals. So there's 12 contestants. They're on the survival show. The prize, whoever makes it last, is $1 million. So it reminds me of that show Alone, if you've ever seen that. It's a reality show. People live in the forest and they have to survive by themselves. And there's no ending to the show. And this is the same in this case. There's no like set time that it ends. For the most part, it's just whoever makes it the longest, but the contestants don't know that. So they're set up for anywhere from 5 to 12 weeks with an option for 16 weeks if somebody makes it that long. Whoever lasts the longest gets the $1 million prize. The way that it's told is every other chapter there's this omniscient narrator who's explaining the TV show as it goes. It's actually reminding me of Craig DeLuise episode 13, which I really didn't like that one. This one is better than that one, but not by a whole lot. In those chapters, they refer to all the characters by these reductive names. I guess it's meant to be how you would remember them, like if you actually were watching the TV show, but it's kind of problematic. Like there's cheerleader boy, there's black doctor, there's Zoo, engineer, banker, Air Force, waitress, rancher, carpenter chick, biology. It's just a bunch of different ridiculous names. And then it switches over to Zoo's perspective every other chapter. When we're getting the chapters from the omniscient narrator, it's starting at the beginning and it's going in chronological order as the TV show episodes air. And then when we get Zoo's perspective, it's later on, she's all alone. Also, Zoo calls these people by their actual names. And so I spent a lot of time making a list, trying to figure out who was who and who was still in the game and who was out. And I kind of had fun with that, trying to figure out, you know, Black Doctor was Tyler, you know, and Zoo, her name was Sam, but she meets this kid and she tells him that her name was May. So there's a lot of different like things going on with that, just trying to figure that out. It's very much Alone meets Station 11, or so I've heard. I have not read Station 11, but I'm getting, you know, it's the apocalyptic vibe. There's no zombies or anything like that, but just a whole bunch of people died from this virus. Anyway, Zoo thinks the game's still going this whole time. Even when she meets this kid, she assumes he's part of the crew and that he's there to film her. He's got a secret video camera somewhere. There's also a separate message thread where people are commenting online about the TV show as it airs. This whole deal about how this forces us to confront the perception of the media on our reality, all of that, the whole Black Mirror thing, I really don't think was a good enough or a big enough part of the story. I don't think I would recommend this to someone as a Black Mirror book. I mean, I get that that was there, but it's really turned a different direction. It ended up being more about Zoo trying to get home to her husband. I wanted us to think as we're reading it that it's real, there's a real virus, and we're waiting for Zoo to find out that the virus is real, which is so far how it went. And I wanted Zoo to find out that the virus was real, only to go back and find out that it then wasn't real. This was all a setup, the whole thing. She went through all this grief with her husband as she found out, and then she realized, oh, it's not a real thing. And her husband was in on it, and da-da-da. And I wanted it to be like just real fucked up. But it didn't go there. It didn't go there. It turned into this like love story, which I thought was really weird. Yeah, I spent too much time trying to figure out the characters. They didn't even matter in the end. I'm disappointed again. I just don't think that this did what it was trying to do, what it set out to do, or at least what it claimed to set out to do. I really wanted to go back into like those first pages where it was all that gore and like that first chapter where we talked about the producer and the editor. That was all we heard from them. That was the last that we heard from them. They never came back into the story. The writing style itself was good. I liked the writing style, but I don't feel like this was well constructed or put together plot-wise. The ending was abrupt. It wasn't ambiguous, but it was abrupt, and it's just kind of like, okay, now it's done. And as I was listening to the audio, and I was like, wait, what? Why did we end there? I don't understand. So again, this is not going to be one that I'm going to recommend. I'm having such bad luck, and I had a complete crisis yesterday when I finished this because I don't know what to read next. I really need to find one that I like. It's getting old at this point. I'm giving this 2.5 stars. It's better than the other one by far, but still not one that I could feel like I could recommend because I don't know who this is for. Is it for someone looking for a romance? Is it for someone looking for a dystopian? It's definitely not for someone looking for a Black Mirror story. So I really don't know with this one. So we're going to set that aside. I had this like crisis yesterday. Like I said, I have all of these books that I found on these lists of books to read like Black Mirror. I'm so afraid I'm going to hate them all. And you know what I thought? I'm just going to read the shortest one, which is Shirley Jackson's Dark Tales. This is an anthology of dark stories. This was also on a Black Mirror list, and I have started it. I've read the first 2 stories in here. Now, here's the thing though. I have read 2 other Shirley Jackson stories and I've not liked any of them. I did not like The Haunting of Hill House, the book anyway. I liked the show. I did not like We All Live in the Castle. We've Always Lived in the Castle. Did not like that one. And based on these first 2 stories, I'm really not loving this either. So this could turn out to just be a terrible vlog, or I might just keep reading books until I find one that I like and then end there. But, you know, I still have hope for this. There is a foreword in this by Otessa Moshfegh, which was cool, and I really liked her foreword. The first story was called The Possibility of Evil, and that was following this woman, what's her name? Adele Strangeworth. And she's like this little old lady. She lives in this small town where she grew up. Her grandfather built the house that she lives in, and her family has lived there for generations. She knows everybody in this small town. She seems very prissy, kind of like she thinks she's better than everybody. As we start out the story, she's going around town running errands, saying hello to everybody. She's very kind and friendly, but she knows that there's some evil lurking in this town. And so what she does is she goes home and she writes letters to people in the town, basically like gossipy things that she doesn't even know are true, but she thinks, well, maybe there's a possibility of evil there, and it's better if I expose it because these people just can't be left to their own devices. It goes from there. You know, it was fine. I'll give it a 3 out of 5 for the story and maybe a 1 out of 5 for the Black Mirror-esque. The next one is Louisa, Please Come Home. This kind of has like an Anastasia type vibe to it because this girl, she ran away from her parents. Every year on the anniversary, they put something in the newspaper and say, Louisa, please come home, Louisa. She has this friend Paul that she was in contact with before she left, and years later, he convinces her to go back home. Turns out Paul has been bringing all these other girls in and having them pretend that they're Louisa and has been tricking the parents, and so they're so jaded now that they don't even believe that Louisa's their daughter. And they're like, sorry, you tried, but if you were a good person, you would just stop trying to break our hearts. Like, please leave. Which I don't get it. I don't believe they would recognize their daughter. They would. It hasn't been that long. They would recognize their daughter. I gave that story a 2 out of 5. As far as like Black Mirror-esque, I gave it 2 out of 5 as well. I think there's like 12 or 13 stories in this whole thing. I'm probably not going to go over every story with you. Maybe I'll just give you highlights because I think it's going to be a little bit tedious if I try to go through every single one. So yeah, that is where we're at. So far, this has been a real shitty vlog. But I'm hoping I find at least one good one that I can recommend to you if you like Black Mirror. Why is this so hard? Why? Oh, look what else I got. My Book Troop shirt came in. And it's my first Book Troop shirt. And I love it. It's so cute. Okay. I'm going to get back to the story. So I have finished Dark Tales by Shirley Jackson. I have found a few in here that I really like. There were, I think, 17 stories in here total. So a lot of stories in like less than 200 pages. Shut up. Wow. The Honeymoon of Mrs. Smith I really liked. This woman is on her honeymoon with this man. Everybody in the town is talking about them. This guy looks an awful lot like the guy in the newspapers who finds these women and gets them to leave everything to him in their will, and then they die in the honeymoon. And so she's like, is it him? Is it not him? But she's kind of resigned to her fate. She just kind of goes with it and sees what happens, and the way it plays out is really interesting. All she said was, yes, this is about this like gossipy neighbor. Their daughter is best friends with the neighbor girl. The neighbor girl's parents tragically die. She has to tell the girl. The girl already knows. They don't like how she reacts to this information. They think she should be upset, but she starts predicting things. And we find that she can see the future. The Good Wife. Ooh, that was a pretty good one too. The last one, Summer People, I liked. I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. Honestly, my favorite interaction with Shirley Jackson so far. A couple of these were just really dumb. I think because she wrote like this in the 50s and the 60s, it probably had a bigger impact then, because a lot of this is about identity and women. A lot of times there is this like woman who's very put together, who's what society would expect her to be, and then these weird things happen to her, or it's revealed that she's not that way. And so I feel like at the time that would have made quite the impact on women who would have read this story or these stories. Is it Black Mirror? No. Again, no. It's not. It's just not. So I'm like, okay, what the hell is Black Mirror? So let's look up like what is Black Mirror about, because I feel like a lot of these recommendations are a little bit off that I've been getting, and it's kind of frustrating because maybe my definition of what Black Mirror is doesn't necessarily match up with people who made these lists. What is Black Mirror about? I already looked this up, obviously. Okay, so this says Black Mirror is a British television anthology series created by Charlie Brooker that features speculative fiction. What does speculative fiction mean? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. It just means weird, as far as I can tell. With dark and sometimes satirical themes that examines modern society. So if we're looking at that, then this does that. Dark, satirical themes, these examine society. But it says, particularly with regard to the unanticipated consequence of new technologies. That's what I think of when I think of Black Mirror, is this new technology, how that affects society. So I guess whether or not we are counting the technology aspect of it, these all do fit if we don't count that, but they don't all fit if we do count that. This one certainly does not if we are talking about technologies, because literally nothing in here is about technology. There's some ghosty stuff in there. There's just some like eerie stuff. I feel like her writing is horror, but it's like muted horror. It's very subtle and subdued and aloof. I think that's what I don't connect with about it, because it's very like under the radar and you really have to pay attention. And it's weird because normally like it reminds me of like British humor, where it's more satirical and it's more like clever. And this does that, and I like British humor, but I don't get along with this quite as well. We're gonna keep reading because we gotta find something that's like Black Mirror to recommend. And so I have now started this book, which has been on my shelf forever. It's part of my physical TBR that I needed to get to anyway. And I feel like I'm gonna like this one. I've been recommended this many times, and that is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I hope I said that right. This also was on one of the lists that we looked at. So what is this about? I'm on page 82. We're following Kathy, and she is telling us about her past, and she's remembering her childhood as she grew up. She is a carer, and we don't know what that is at the beginning, like what's a carer? And so there's carers and there's donors, and we're like, what is that? What does that mean? And the whole question of that is what kept my interest so far, that has like kept me locked in on this. So she starts off and she tells us about where she grew up at this school called Hailsham, and her friends Tommy and Ruth, and how they grew up together. In this school, it's like they're separate. They know they're special. They're special from anybody in the outside world. They're more special than their guardians. There are like teachers and teachers/guardians who like raise them. Essentially, they don't have parents. In this school, creativity is more important than anything else. And then there's also this like gallery where like every so often Madam comes and she takes the best of the best pieces and they go to the gallery. She always looks at the kids like in this really weird way, like they think, is she afraid of us? Like, why is she so weird? And why does she need our art? Where is this gallery and what's going on with that? And they start questioning things. Tommy, one of Kathy's friends, he is just not a very good artist. And because of that, the kids make fun of him. He's bullied. One day, one of his teachers pulls him aside, Miss Lucy, and she's like, look, it's okay. Sometimes people are just not creative. And he was like, what? And when he tells his friend, when he tells Kathy about this, it's like this whole secret thing. It's like, we can't talk about people not being creative. Like, that's not okay. And Miss Lucy's like, no, some people are just not creative. And I happen to think, I want you to know that at least one person in this school thinks that you're a good student, even though you're not a creative person, which is so weird. But I love it. The way she talks about those things that you remember as a child that maybe just struck you a certain way and stuck with you. But then when she's talking to Tommy about it as an adult, she realizes, she sees this whole other side of the conversation where the context comes in and then that memory becomes something completely different. Also, the way just the children are portrayed. Tommy does something when they're kids. He like does this watercolor of an elephant because he thinks it's going to be funny. And Kathy's like, I don't know what he was thinking. You know, either he wanted to get a chuckle or get a rise out of the kids in the classroom. We don't understand our reasoning when we're kids. We just do something and maybe it'll get us some attention. But after the fact, if someone pulls you over and says, why did you do that? You're like, I don't know. There's no way to answer that because you don't really understand your motives as a child. And I love that. I feel like that's so insightful because it feels true to life. So I have just gotten to the part where the kids are being told why they're special, and we're kind of dissecting what donors and carers actually are, and holy shit. I'm not going to tell you because I feel like it would spoil you, even though it's like 80 pages in. If I finish this and I feel like the whole rest of the book is about that and it wasn't a spoiler, then I'll let you know. But otherwise, I don't want to unintentionally spoil anything for you, but I really do think I'm going to like this. And again, I don't know if this is going to hit the Black Mirror note. I don't know. It could, I suppose. But I don't know. The audiobook for this is fantastic too. I think I'm going to read one more after this. And out of these, this one you may have seen in my audiobook haul, The Circle. This really does sound like it would hit the Black Mirror note, but I'm not interested in it really. And it's really fat. And I don't know if I want to read that. This one I think is going to be really good, but I don't think it's going to hit the Black Mirror challenge. But it sounds awesome. Dark, modern spin on Southern Gothic. And this one's also an anthology, so I think maybe we should stay away from that. All Our Wrong Todays could hit the mark, but could not. I think it's more like multiple universe kind of theory stuff. Yeah, Tom Barron lives in the 2016 that people in the 1950s imagined we would have. A version of the world where technology has solved all of humanity's problems, yet Tom can't seem to find his place in this perfect utopia and feels like a constant disappointment to his brilliant but distant father. When the girl of his dreams turns his life upside down, Tom does what you do when you're heartbroken and have a time machine. Something stupid. So he ends up in our 2016, which to him is this like terrible dystopian society. Oh, I kind of want to read this one. This one gives me Matt Haig vibes. Okay, and then also there's so many books. I have this one, which I think is going to be actually perfect for the Black Mirror kind of aspect. This is After On by Rob Reed. And I did listen to the sample of the audiobook of this, and it sounds really funny. Like, just in the first paragraph, they're like, yeah, this book is 547 pages. I fucking dare you to finish it. I dare you. But yeah, again, it's 547 pages. Do I want to read that? I don't know. The definitive novel of today's Silicon Valley, After On, flash captures our cultural and technological moment with up-to-the-instant savvy. Matters of privacy and government intrusion, post-Tinder romance, nihilistic terrorism, artificial consciousness, synthetic biology, and much more are tackled with authority and brash playfulness by Rob Reed. And it's following Flutter, which is a diabolically addictive new social network, and a villainous heroine, enemy, and or bestie to millions. I can't have these be the only books that I read in February as Black Mirror books. I don't have time to read all the books, but do I? And then I have this one by Patrick Ness. More than this, I think is more about like mental illness and is YA. So I'm definitely going to count that one out. But for now, I'm going to finish Never Let Me Go. Also, Never Let Me Go is the name of a song. That's where the title comes from. It's the name of a song that Kathy loved when she was a girl. And I love that. Okay, I have finished Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, and I thought this was really, really good, you guys. I'm so conflicted about what to tell you about this because the main draw of this is kind of the twist for me, but is it a twist? Is it even a twist? I don't know. I don't know that it's a twist. I finished this book. I immediately watched the movie, which I also had never seen. It's more literary, I guess, than I had anticipated, but it's almost like a coming of age, slice of life with a Black Mirror, also dystopian kind of situation. This 100% fits the Black Mirror trope.
Finally, we found it. We did it. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
I think this perfectly did it, which is, it's weird because as I was reading the book, I was not picturing a certain moment in time. I felt like this could be slightly into the future. But when I watched the movie, it was very clearly set and specifically stated that it was an altered history. And it started out in like 1960s and then followed through to like the 1990s. Ooh, I want to say England.
It wasn't England? I think it was England.
And in the movie, it was very specifically that time, and it was very clearly altered history. But in the book, it felt like it could have been any time. There were different parts to this book, to this novel, but it never once stated a time, which I think is actually really smart because this honestly could be at any point in time. I think I'm going to do a little spoilery section because there's stuff I want to talk about with you, and I feel like this is old enough. This was written, I think, in 2005, that a lot of people probably have read this, and I want to discuss that little kind of twist with you, but I don't want to spoil anybody that doesn't want to be spoiled. So I'm going to put a spoiler bar up here. And I will also separate it in the chapters down below, so feel free to skip this over if you don't want to know. I don't think it's necessarily a spoiler, but if there is a twist, it does spoil it. But there's not really a twist. I don't really know how to explain it without explaining it. Are you gone? Wait, are all the people gone? Be gone now.
All of the kids at Hailsham are clones.
This so reminded me of the movie The Island, which I guess is also based off of a book that also came out in 2005, I think, with Scarlett Johansson and Ewan McGregor, which I loved. Loved that movie. But this one is more literary. Like, I'm thinking about those things in comparison. This one is more literary. It's more like slice of life into these clones, and it's more tragic. Oh my gosh, this was tragic. And The Island is more of what you would think of as like a typical sci-fi dystopian movie, but in both of them, they're donating their vital organs. And that is the kind of twist. These kids don't know, or like they don't realize that they are here only to donate their vital organs. They are copies of other people. Sorry, I actually am sick. It's not COVID, but I've been feeling like shit. I do wish that this had delved a little bit more into the people that they were modeled after, their clones, or I guess the humans, not the clones. But I loved this whole thing of like, Are they people? Are they not people? And the point of having their art in a gallery was to see, okay, do these kids have a soul? Because so many people are so ready to just not even think about them, ready to push these clones into the back of their mind. Hailsham was different because they treated them like people, because they wanted to give them the best upbringing that they possibly could, despite the fact that they're going to be donating their organs until they die. And the point of them having that gallery was to show the world, look, you can see a soul in these clones. They are humans. And so there is that examination of that fine line between human and not. Because it's man-made, does that mean they don't have a soul? I think they are people. They are people. But that whole discussion is so mind-boggling and interesting in general. And when they go back to Madams to apply for the deferral, oh my goodness. And then they discover like the truth of what it is after all of these years, the truth about themselves. It's insane. So I'll go back to non-spoilers now. So this book was absolutely tragic, like so tragic, so heartfelt, heartbreaking. The core of this is just a story of humanity. I think if you like Matt Haig, you would enjoy this. If you like dystopian books in general, you would enjoy this. But it definitely does hit that Black Mirror mark. And I can't decide what I'm going to give this. I'm somewhere between a 4 and a 5. I don't know if that's because it is kind of a sad story, more literary story, that I'm kind of struggling with this, because I can't think of anything I don't like about it other than I would have liked to see more of a certain aspect that I mentioned in the spoilers, which I won't mention now. So I think I'm going to give this a 4.5 stars. So close to a 5, so heart-wrenching and beautiful, just such a beautiful, beautiful story. And interesting, that twist, y'all, I want to tell you so bad, but I don't want to spoil anything. But that's like the draw of this, is the twist. And I keep saying the twist, but like, is it even a twist? I don't know. If y'all have read this, let me know if that's something that, it doesn't say it in the description. I know that. So I'm like, that's why I'm like, maybe I shouldn't. But the movie adaptation, I will say, cuts a lot out. Like any movie, you miss so much of the good, juicy bits. The book is 100% better, but the vibe of the movie, the tone of the movie, the energy that it's giving is perfection, and the actors are amazing. It even has, I don't know his name, this guy is in the movie, who is in one of my favorite episodes of Black Mirror. It's all coming full circle. It's full circle. It's amazing. That being said, I don't think I'm going to continue reading more books after this, because I just don't think anything's going to beat this. And I'm just so happy with this one, and happy that I found one that I can recommend and that I loved. So I am going to end this vlog with this, but I'm still very much interested in these ones. So if you're interested in me doing another one of these and reading these 3 books, let me know, and I would absolutely consider that. Otherwise, I'll probably just read these on my own without doing like a specific vlog at some point in the future when I get to them on my TBR. Generally, this was a very fun exploration, although there were some not such great reads in here. I'm glad that I was able to read them so that you don't have to and tell you that they were shitty. Aside from this one, of course. So just to sum things up, we started with Machines Like Me by Ian McEwan. This one absolutely sucked, has no plot line, don't recommend at all, 1 star. Just no, he got so wrapped up in the alternate history, he didn't care about actually giving this book a plot. Do not recommend. After that, I read the last one. I gave this, I think, 2.5 stars. This is very apocalyptic, also has that kind of media perception duality there. Doesn't really hit the Black Mirror concept, but it was okay. The writing style was good. I would read from this author again, but I just don't know who to recommend this to. And I don't necessarily know what it was trying to do. I don't understand it. Next, we read Dark Tales by Shirley Jackson. Overall, one of my better experiences with this author, though again, in my definition, I don't think it necessarily hits the Black Mirror mark, but in some definitions, I think it would. This does critique society. So in that way, it does hit the Black Mirror element, but it doesn't have that futuristic thing that I was looking for. And that might just be a me thing specifically, but there were a few stories in here that I really did like. I do respect Shirley Jackson as an author. I just don't necessarily always jive with her. I want to read The Lottery still. I think after that I will decide if I'm going to continue or not. I'm just like, one more and I'll decide, one more and I'll decide. We'll see. Some of these I really did appreciate and enjoy, although not all of them. And again, it's always hard to rate an anthology. What did I say I was giving this? 3 stars? 3.5 stars, I think. So we'll stick with that. And then we have 4.5 star, Never Let Me Go. Definitely recommend this one if you haven't read it yet. So many people have said, read it. Even when I did my bookshelf tour and I saw it, I know a few people were like, you need to read that, it's so good, I think you'll love it. I disregarded that because the synopsis is so vague. But I'm telling you, if you trust me, if you trust my opinion on books, then I think you will like this. If we tend to have similar taste, I think you will like this. Give it a try. Even though it's a vague synopsis, just do it. Because it's so good. It's so good. And I've really never been attracted to this author's writing before, and now I am. Now I want to read more from them. And so that's it. Those are the 4 books that we read for this vlog. Thank you all so much again for hanging out with me. If you have watched this video all the way through, why don't you give me an eyeball emoji if you have watched this all the way through? And if you have, you're a friggin' saint, because I know this is long. I know it's long. Don't forget that life is short, so read Wryly. Cheers and goodbye!